Two folks, and here we go.
Students have been defrauded by for-profit colleges like Phoenix Online, ITT Tech. They get an unaccredited nonsense degree that leads to nowhere. They're drowning in debt after being defrauded. How exactly would you deal with those situations with the elimination of the education department?
If it is a
It's a
true
good question.
case of fraud, that's a violation of the law. They can be prosecuted under the law. They can be sued in civil suits by the people who are defrauded. No different than any other commercial relationship that exists in the private sector. However,
the problem is that when it comes to something specific like educational fraud, you might want to have a department with the specific expertise to investigate claims like that. Like, you can't expect regular police officers to manage all investigations. I and some other students feel we've been defrauded by this private university. Get Sheriff Wiggums on the job. It helps to have agencies who have specific expertise when it comes to those kinds of problems.
when you have a bureaucracy at the Department of Education that's spending that $80 billion at a moment where school choice programs across the country are underfunded,
they should be.
See, but how do you stop fraud then? There's no department. I mean, there's a fraud division. I mean, how are we gonna stop fraud? It'd be more, actually probably more fraud if you just get rid of the department. I mean, that's the way you stop the fraud. And before that, if you actually get rid of the department, it's gonna be more fraud. I mean, I guess it would, yeah, it would be more fraud, wouldn't it? And they have a fraud division in the, they could go after people. And it's more, they're Vaush as well. It's gonna be harder for the local police to go after them because there's a fraud division in the education department. I mean, or maybe the FBI. I don't know, federal police. You can take their resources to, and you have other big, other like crimes, higher crimes than this to look out for. So that means the federal government has to step in, or the local. Well, you saying the local government in this case, wrong. I mean, there's a fraud division in the department. They look after this. They go after criminals. They want to defraud the system. But you're gonna get rid of that. There's gonna be more fraud.
closed, which is a better use of money. Put that $80 billion.
He said civil suits, so he wants random citizens to do all themselves. Yeah, because what he's actually talking about, again, the plan conservatives have for schooling is the unchecked power of Christian conservative schools, private Christian conservative schools. So tax money should go to them. School choice should take people out of like inner city schools and leave them to rot with no money. If you have like a problem with private schooling, you need to fund your own civil suit,
Dollar budget in the pockets of parents across the
Vaush is right against that. But he haven't pushing back. Vaush should push back against that. I would say, why not follow up? So why wouldn't that create more fraud? I mean, why would they? And this would do that to you're taking money out of the system. And that's gonna create more, how would I say? You're gonna take the money out of the system. You're gonna get rid of get rid of the system. And so how would you stop the fraud? There's gonna be more frauds. How are you gonna? And and you're gonna civil suits, which could take a long time. See, that's gonna add more fraud. So how are you gonna prevent? There's gonna be more of a problem. So how would you? Wouldn't we have to be a system that has to? You still need a system that will stop this fraud, like prevent the fraud and go after the. I mean, like somehow you need to do that, wouldn't you? I mean, this wouldn't. I mean, they would do some follow-up questions to that. Ask him something like, why would you? I mean, I'm gonna give him some stats on the education. And charter schools are, when there's cases like that, they don't really. It will cost more than they haven't really worked. So charter schools. If they don't do it better than public school. Look, some do, some don't. It's not much difference. They don't come out better. I mean, I guess in general, in the public, see, you need money for education, like public school system. Enough sufficient funds, I think they will do good. In some cases, it will cost you more. They actually cost more in the voucher system, in the private than the public school. And the results are not that different. I mean, in this case, there's cases to that. There's studies on that, I think. I can look it up. Well, I'll actually see that. I'm pretty sure there's not much difference. I mean, they don't come out way better than in the private sector, private school. And and the cost is not much. Like, there's not much waste. Not much difference. Not much better in the voucher system.
It'd be about 1.6 billion per state in this union. It's not even close, which is a better use of funds. And I think you avoid a lot of the bureaucratic corruption. And you're right. The people who sit on top
is that true
of
that
those
what you said?
agencies are appointed by a democratically elected U.S. president. 99
is the of like inner city schools and leave them to rot with no money.
Let's see. You want to go back? What did he say?
I think bad policy, but so-called civil service protections that have stopped the U.S. president or the duly elected representatives or even cabinet secretaries from firing those employees, which creates a culture of rot, of laziness.
What did he say?
Of those agencies are appointed by a democratically elected U.S. president.
No, come on.
Of those agencies
fund your own civil suit, you know?
Dollar budget in the pockets of parents across this country, be about 1.6 billion per state in this union. It's not even close, which is a better use of funds. And I think you avoid a lot of the bureaucratic corruption. And you're right. The people who sit on top of those agencies are appointed by a democratically elected U.S. president. 99.999% of those
That wasn't even true what he says. I don't know.
employees do not fit that description. To the contrary, they're protected by...
Yeah, no shit. You can't have... What? You can't have appointed every single... What? What does that mean?
I think bad policy, but so-called civil service protections that have stopped the U.S. president or the duly elected representatives or even cabinet secretaries from firing those employees, which creates a culture of rot, of laziness, of ineffectiveness, and yes, even of corruption in many of those agencies. And so I have a simple proposition. I think the people who we elect to
This is bullshit, by the way. Okay, what so many people say when they say what so many people mean when they say anti-corruption is that they're anti-bureaucracy. And sorry, bureaucracies are part and parcel to the modern state, and they are necessary.
See, Vaush, give you props again, kind of. You're right. He's kind of. What's the Republicans are? He wants to show the minimum government. Like less and less government. That's they always been their philosophy, the Republicans. Well, conservatives. That's all been their philosophy. Like minimum government. The bare minimum, that's what their philosophy is. But yeah, he's pushing back against. So score. I give him that to Vaush. Because these guys are not even going back against him. See, how about a follow-up question? Winning this and that. Like, you want to get rid of the whole so-called bureaucracy, but that's gonna... How it's gonna survive, this bureaucracy. less and less. I mean, get rid of the funding, you completely dismantle it. That's what you're doing. And it seems like you're dismantling the whole system. That's what it seems to me. How about that argument?
Many cases they are good.
How about that question?
Bureaucracies allow for literally all of the civic complexity that allows for anything more complicated than fucking feudalism. It is one thing to be anti-corruption. Everyone should be anti-corruption. But the idea of like, oh yeah, I'm anti-corruption, by which I mean I don't like the fact that not every bureaucrat in the Department of Education is like personally elected. That's just insane. That's completely insane.
On the government, they ought to be the ones who actually run the government. And if there are people who disagree with me, if they're the people who I don't vote for, I accept that. But we live in a constitutional republic where at least the people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who are actually running it. When
so the electorate
policy decisions made.
So so the president. So some guy in the government, the federal government, should run the local. Should run the bureaucracy. Like there's no middleman. There's just somebody on the top running the whole thing. Like there's no middleman and no lower agency. Just the federal government itself. Like one guy somehow runs everything in the agent. Like there's no middleman. There's no lower bureaucracy. Like so one guy controls everything. I mean, yeah, right. Get rid of so no civil service, nothing. You have one guy, a czar, that runs everything. Like does this from one single to central power, to centralized power. Like a central government. I think that's at least to be a liberal. It's a Trudeau doctrine, actually. Pierre Trudeau. There used to be the doctrine, strong central government in Canada here. So you everything like you want a centralized government. The Republicans you want. I mean, well, it's not against the Constitution in a way. I mean,
no, you can't elect every single member of every bureaucracy in the federal government. There's a third of 1 billion people in this country. You can't, elect the department under...
See, this guy, he's got Vaush. He's actually right. He's pushing back. And these guys are not even... Just letting them talk. It's amazing. Cenk and Ana. Not pushing back against this. This is a Looney Tune idea. This is a Looney Tune idea. They not do nothing, just let them talk. It's amazing. No follow-up question to that. Oh, isn't this gonna do this? That's crazy.
Secretary of the third branch of the office of the local regional... But no, what? This renders democracy meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
We have a system where our presidents will appoint the leaders of these federal administrative divisions, and they make hiring decisions accordingly. But the idea that, because these bureaucratic office workers are unelected means that they're all making partial political decisions is completely bullshit. The leaders of these administrative departments are appointed in the presidential cabinet. The decisions they're making are being shaped by the leader of the branch.
Regulating our energy sector, to our healthcare sector, to financial markets, to education, come from unelected bureaucrats in the federal government. And that serves neither Republicans nor Democrats.
So you want to get rid of the bureaucrats. So you want to centralize government, kind of. Like someone on top, somebody in the White House. You could, assumingly, you probably have less. If they're elected, you're gonna have somebody. You're gonna have not many bureaucrats. I mean, somebody. I mean, that's a lot of people you have to elect. It's crazy. That's what Vaush was saying. You have to elect a lot of people. Because there's a lot of bureaucrats in Washington. Or in the, so you have to, a lot of agencies. You should just be elected. See, you're gonna have fewer. That's not, you're gonna have fewer, that's what they want. They want fewer bureaucrats. They're elected. So you're gonna have one guy controlling. It's a more centralized government in a way. And and you're saying that give it to the power of POTUS. More power to. So they're saying that they're saying it's out of control. All these bureaucrats are ruining everything. They're doing their own thing. They're out of control. That's the problem. So we're going to centralize it. It's going to be elections. Make it more. It's going to be less of them. That's what he wants. He wants to be less bureaucrats. So it's going to be more power in the federal government, more centralized. I mean, more of a kind of move toward a dictatorship. I guess that's what they want. I mean,
Democrats nor any American well, and that's going to change on my watch as president.
Let's talk a little bit more about school choice. So school choice vouchers, they tend to be statewide programs that take public funding away from public schools and redirects that money to private institutions that do not have to abide by similar standards, education standards that public schools have to abide by. And so how do you consider the lack of standards and how that might play a role?
Getting private schooling in a lot of cases is kind of like a slightly diminished and much more expensive version of being homeschooled, where you'll be really, really, really well educated on some specific subjects, but it'll come at the cost of some weird gaps in your knowledge and also a general social awkwardness. At least in my experience. Though homeschooling leads to it much worse than private education does.
Wow. Okay.
And it doesn't always happen that way, of course.
In a system in which voters would not have the right to vote unless, in your dream scenario, they pass a civics test. What if those public dollars are being funneled to certain religious private schools?
Vaush, the members of the cabinet also have to be confirmed by Congress. Yes, but in practice, the president usually gets their free pick of cabinet leaders. Like, the Department of Treasury or whatever may be full of bureaucrats who are not directly elected, but who you put in charge of the department through your appointing as president does have a huge amount of influence in how the department actually behaves. You might say TYT handled this better than outlets like CNN, but I still feel like they're platforming him too much and not challenging him on some stuff. They're challenging him on everything.
Bingo! That's it, folks. They're right. They're not challenging him. Absolutely right. His audience, even his audience says that. One guy in his audience. Even this guy, his audience is saying that too. Oh my God, you guys are dum-dums.
Bad platforming, then I will never be able to do good platforming.
That do a poor job in educating their students about American history, civics, basically what they need to know, the education they need in order to pass the civics test that you think people need to pass in order to be able to vote.
So as it relates to standardized testing as one metric among many, and other metrics also track it, it's actually the reverse that you see that's true. Public schools are badly failing across this country. And if you look at the correlation between the schools that spend
his solution to this is literally to fund them less.
The most money per student, Ana, those are the schools that achieve the poorest results 90% of the time across this country. So the irony is if a parent
most money to schools, it's not even true or not. I don't know if that's even true.
Is moving a kid from a school that spends more money per student to a school that spends less money per student, 90% of the time they're moving to a school that actually has higher achievement as it relates to standardized tests.
Hold on, so I don't understand your logic. I don't believe that. It's pure garbage. You believe this, folks? So a school with less money gets less money. Then they spend. or spending less money. Oh no, he's spending less money per student. I don't believe this. They get more better results. I don't believe that. Look at these like Vaush said before, these schools in the black neighborhoods get less money. Definitely, they're getting less money, and they spend less money. They spend because they're getting less money. So this logic is they're getting less money, so they're spending less money per student. I'm sure they are. They're not spending more money, and they're getting poor results. So I don't believe that. It's bullshit. Garbage.
Metrics. So mind you, I actually have a somewhat radical.
So the point that he's making here. So this is like, you know how you can lie with statistics. This is an example of lying with statistics. Schools that are not doing that well on their own funding because they don't receive a lot of money from property taxes get more money per student from the government, because the government is trying to supplement the lower amount of money they get from the local property taxes. And as a consequence of that, the way it appears...
Okay, I didn't know that. So the government subsidizes those schools. That's what Vaush is. I didn't know that in the U.S. But they're not really getting less money. I mean, they're not getting they're getting less money because they don't take in as much in taxes. So the government has to subsidize whatever the remainder of the money to be efficient enough for them to sustain that school. To understand what he's saying now. It's not because, yeah, he's right. But I didn't know that in the States they subsidize those schools. The government comes in and helps them out. If they fail in school, so they have to come in. Yeah, so they're spending more money because of the government. Yeah, the government has to help them, but they're not really. Yeah, because they're getting less money. He's right. And they're not really. Are they really spending less? They're using. But I don't know if that's true. I don't believe him. I don't believe them. I don't believe him that they're spending more money than the other schools, than they did the well-off schools.
If you only look at money given by government, the more money a school gets, the worse that school tends to be in terms of educational attainment. But that's because the only money you're looking at is the aid money that's being given to compensate for the lack of money received through property taxes and other normal sources. So this is, again, it's lying through data, basically. You're only taking a look at one source of funding, and it's the source of funding that scales in proportion to how you are beforehand. So the more funding you get, the fewer beforehand. And as a consequence of that, it's like, oh, well, actually, the more money you get, the worse you do, which is just bullshit. If you take a look at total money available to a school, you will see a much better representation, or a much better, correlation between the amount of money they have and, how good their students are doing. Does that make sense?
Idea of this. Let's say it's in New York City, where I can give you the actual numbers. It's $40,000 per student per year in the failing public schools. To good charter schools or private schools or even better public schools that are spending $20,000 or $15,000 per student per year.
Because they're getting their money elsewhere. Obviously, it's a private school. Where do you think the money is coming from? No shit. He's like, yeah, if you take a look at these private rich schools where rich people go, then they're getting less federal money, but they're doing better. What about the other sources of money they're receiving?
I think that parent, that kid, should be able to take half that difference with them. If you put that in the kid's account, invest it normally,
Where?
that kid graduates with a $250,000 graduation gift. It's not even close.
From where? What difference? The money the money the government gives them to put it into put that into a voucher. You take money away from you're taking money away from the public school.
What accounts for a better use of money? Now, here's the problem. Those schools that are producing those...
He's just flatly bullshitting here. The idea is what if instead of funding the schools, we just let your child move into a charter or private school with Christian conservatives education, where we don't have.
And how much money are you gonna have to go around for vouchers? Give them a free voucher. There's not enough spaces for the. I mean, it's gonna cost the parents more money. We're just sucking the money out of the people. That's what it is, folks. You're gonna send your kid to a private school. You're gonna need a voucher. Piece half of it. It's gonna cost you more. Cost them more in the end. The parent put them into that school. And on average, it's gonna cost them more. And just sucking the blood out of the people.
Standardized education to teach them that slavery wasn't done by Jews. And at the end of all of it, they'll get all the money they would have gotten given to them in their stead to that federal school, which wouldn't be that much, and it's total nonsense. He's just making shit up.
Poor results. They have one constraint that a lot of those private schools and charter schools don't. Those are teachers' unions.
The number one way everyone lies about schools is that private schools choose their students. Public schools have to take everyone. Yep, it's one of the same reasons that healthcare cost per individual is higher with Medicare than it is with regular private insurance, which leads a lot of people to be like, whoa, Medicare is so inefficient. Why is the cost per person so high with Medicare? Because Medicare has to take
everybody.
All the poor people.
Yeah.
Or well, is it all the old people? I actually forget. I mix up Medicare and Medicare. I think Medicare is the old people one, right?
Yeah.
In that case, it'd be old people. Same. Both? Oh, I mixed them up. Sorry. Whatever. Medicare is old people mostly. Yeah. Okay. Whatever the case may be, the point of the public insurance system there is that they have to take the people who are either poor or old and are therefore like higher risk insurance cases, whereas private insurance, like I don't know, Kaiser Permanente or whatever, can choose to reject you based on a number of things, and it costs money that you have to have in order to be able to use it. You understand? So in both cases, with education and with healthcare, you see disproportionately worse results in the public option because they have to take everyone.
And he makes a great point. So Vaush is winning the argument more on all of us. So I can't really attack him on that. So I thought I would attack him on a lot of stuff, but he's doing well. He's doing better than these idiots. They're not really pushing back. I mean, doing the counter attacks, like counter arguments. Like, how would this work? I mean, just let him say, do what? I mean, challenge him on this something, man. Instead of Trump.
So I've had actually both experiences in my own life. I went to a not great public school, 1st through 8th grade. And then my parents decided to work extra hard and make some sacrifices to be able to send me to a private school for high school in Cincinnati. Just look at the last several years. In the COVID pandemic, the Cincinnati public schools were closed for a full year and then almost a full next year. This high school that I went to, there were 4 total days that were closed the entire time. So it's not that COVID only affects kids at public schools or teachers at public schools. To the contrary, these teachers' unions are failing our kids and failing the very...
Always the teachers' unions, really. The teachers are so bad. That's why the kids are so terrible. I mean, they're so they're not learning anything because of the teachers' union. I mean, there's always a teachers' union. I mean, a teacher is better than to me is better than a cop. I mean, as good as a teacher is good as a doctor, a physician, right? And but they're bad. They're not respected. And to deal with the kids nowadays is I mean, seems like they would say that kids seem like they're getting worse and worse. I don't know. But they're harder to deal with than the other generation. I mean, so just bashing the teachers union. I guess that's their whole Republicans always love that.
Constituents.
And what about the cop union? So that's a problem. That's more police union. I mean, what's worse? We know all what's worse, folks. Boys in blue, their unions, far worse.
The very members of the public they're supposedly serving.
The reason Republicans go after teachers' unions so much is because they don't like teachers, and teachers' unions are a proxy. There are problems with teachers' unions, but they are problems that exist in many bureaucracies all over the place.
Okay.
They are just like systemic issues that are very difficult to deal with and should be dealt with. But again, it's a complicated matter. They go after teachers' unions because they really want to go after teachers. They don't like teachers because they don't like education, because educated people vote blue.
So
No,
yes,
because they want to teach their own. Because they want to indoctrinate their own shit, their own philosophy, and because they think all this so-called wokeness, I don't know, they blame this because of teachers. What they call it wokeness. In some cases, the trans issue. It's kind of they're not really teaching kids about trans or whatever. I mean, like I mean, it's not really that a bigger problem. Maybe some cases there might be, but I think that now that the trans issues have gotten this more heightened up. Like the argument, they got more like triggered by this. So even more they're going after teachers union.
I do think competition, there's no perfect solution, but I think competition is the next best solution to perfect. And that, I think, is going to hold the public schools teachers' feet to the fire, get rid of those teachers' unions, and yes,
competition, you mean the private sector, the private schools. Oh, they'll less the money. If we give it the unions, I mean they'll work their really salary. So they're gonna make it like make like a regular job, teachers. Like a minimum, close to like a minimum wage job in a way. Like they just teach the basics, and it doesn't matter what. I mean, you teach what they want, their own curriculum, their own right-wing curriculum, so they can teach whatever they want, and be so a teacher will be like a plumber, or like there won't be less money, there'll be more money because with no unions, how are you gonna negotiate? I mean, it's gonna be harder. You're not gonna have any good people going to that profession, and it's gonna be terrible. So do you want to be like a job, like a plumber job, or I mean, like a guy like somebody working at a grocery store, not that, or a banker, like a bank teller. That's what they want a teacher to be like. I mean, the bank tellers make a little above minimum wage, but they're not that. They don't make that much money. And they're like dime a dozen. They could be replaced easily. They could be fired easily. That's why too. They could fire them easily. You can't ban unions. Isn't that illegal? They could get rid of them. They don't have to get a law, I guess, to get rid of. Wouldn't that be illegal to do that? Or maybe not. But that's just a show. They could do all their shit. They just wanna. See, they could do their own propaganda too. That's what the conservatives want. That's why they don't like teachers. Their own damn propaganda. I mean, it's like in the PragerU. That's what they want. Garbage. Terrible. They're just fascists. These guys are just fascists. These conservatives. He's right, they're fascists. But Democrats, But nowadays, see Democrats are fascists too in a way. Huh. What's going on now?
For free?
In terms of free speech, that is. Democrats seem like they're fascists. Not liberals, but Democrats. See, they always talk about liberals being like cancel culture, like Cenk, Ana. They talk about liberals, this and that. Another thing with cancel culture, oh, they're doing this. But look what the US is doing. With the thing with I'm gonna say it, the Israel Palestine. Certain free speech is being, certain cancel culture. Democrats and Republicans are doing cancel culture. And they say Democrats are not liberals. I mean, not leftists. It's really the straight out leftists are really going out in protest, doing all this. When you have the liberals, bourgeois liberals, and the government liberals, so-called liberals, with mainstream liberals, the moderate, or the centrists, they're doing the centrist, the like censorship, the cancel culture. So you always see the leftists, see, and the right wing too. See, this is the thing, the left wing gets accused of being cancel culture. But who's doing it now? The right wing and the moderates. So-called Democrat moderates, conservatives. And these guys dunk on them, Ana and Cenk.
System goes back to being about the achievement of our students rather than employment opportunities for these union members. And that's just the hard truth.
It also lets them be anti-union. Last video, we're doing so well.
You've said that you're against secularism. So which religion should rule us all?
None. That is the answer.
Well, isn't that secularism?
That's not secularism. I think
that is secularism.
Capitalist secularism is something that has used a substitute religious-like worldview to foist that affirmatively onto multiple institutions across this country.
Actually, atheism is the real religion. And I know that because atheists believe things sometimes, and believing stuff is like a religion, man.
I don't believe in a ethno-religious state. I don't. Well, theocratic, it's a theocratic state, I should say, not ethno. But, I'm okay right now with secularism. But, and you see, not we shouldn't be out of the world, Christians. I mean, like, we should be into the world. Christians should not be into the world, the Bible says, something like that. So being a Christian state, you being part of the state, it shouldn't be.
I think that there are many forcible agendas. If you have to pledge allegiance to a diversity, equity, inclusion agenda as a function.
You don't. You don't have to pledge allegiance to it. That's not how that works.
Of getting a job. I think that is a Title VII violation, civil rights violation today. So I don't believe that there should be...
He's right. Even that doesn't happen. These guys didn't push back against that. I mean, they could say it doesn't exist.
Any religion, secular, humanism, or otherwise, foisted upon anyone, certainly not through the government.
Okay, so the practical purpose of this rhetoric is him saying...
Who's forcing who?
I'm for equality of religion. And for that reason, I don't think we should have the religion of wokeness forced on people. That's it. It really is that stupid and blunt and crude and idiotic. It is that bad. That is what he's
doing. Culture wars he's doing now.
Is saying here.
My view is you have free expression in the United States. I'm an ardent defender of religious liberty. Whatever your religion is, you have the right to practice it as long as you're not explicitly harming somebody else.
That's literally secularism, Vivek. That's literally the definition of secularism.
That's actually...
Yeah.
Well then, Cenk...
Well, no.
See, they finally pushed back. Something they pushed back against him. Well, on the other stuff, on the Trump stuff, they really didn't allow him to speak. I mean... But here they just allow him to just say anything, no pushback. Look at Anna's like, okay. She just saying, like she wants to say something, but why she's not. They just like, at least they were told to let him speak. Maybe that's why.
If we had secularism, then why is it that people are woke? Why do people believe in gods like diversity and tolerance?
I would say respectfully, whatever word you use to describe it. Now I've written a whole book about this, and so we can debate the vocabulary. But in concept, I believe that every religion should be practicable in the United States with religious liberty as long as you're not harming somebody else. And the government cannot establish any one religion as the governing religion for the United States of America.
And yet, the Biden administration has established diversity, equity, and inclusion as the religion of America. Wokeness and critical race theory and transgender are the religions of America. Yes, he is describing secularism. He just wants to frame wokeness as a religion.
Good news,
That's
that's in the U.S.
what the
Constitution.
says.
That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
I
That's
believe
the U.S.
you said
Constitution. That is why the U.S. Constitution is considered the first secular constitution. But okay, now we've all done a literacy and civics test.
Well, look, I think it's in the First Amendment for a reason. Free speech, free expression, freedom of religious choice, and non-establishment. Yes, those are foundational to our constitutional republic. I do think that many of
Vivek failing his civics test again. Yoink! They're fucking no voting for you, buddy. You're a Zoomer, right?
the philosophies that are foisted on kids, the hostility towards schools that may want
Love
to
it,
adopt
foisting.
certain religious worldviews as private schools, the hostility towards somebody who says if you don't approve of a certain kind of marriage, you still have to officiate that marriage using the state's force to do it. That's what I mean by capital S secularism, to say that you are forcing somebody to do.
What? You need
Isn't
to
there a
do
Supreme
religion-
Court did that? Said something about that. They're not allowed to do that, I think. They're not allowed to do that. There's a case and they can't do that. They're not forced to do that. I think you're wrong.
To do a marriage? What? The state will marry you. You just have to do paperwork. What?
Something that mean by the hostility towards somebody who says if you don't approve of a certain kind of marriage, you still have to officiate that marriage using the state's force to do it. That's what I mean by capital S secularism, to say that you are forcing somebody to do something that violates their religion.
Don't. Wait, guys, am I wrong on this? I'm pretty sure if a priest doesn't want to officiate a gay wedding, they don't have to. It's just
There's a law with the cake thing. And they didn't want to do a cake with the gay couple. He said they couldn't do it. They weren't forced to do it. I mean, so when the Supreme Court said they're not forced to do it. So what? You saying that they're forced to do it? They're not. And Vaush, you're right.
just that the state has to recognize the marriage. Marriage, the legal entity of being married, is something that the government has to recognize. But if you're a religious official, you don't have to do that.
Okay, remember what? Yeah, Vaush is right about that. He's right. So I'm not slamming him today, I guess.
I think it might vary by state. Are priests forced to officiate gay
It might be different in different states.
weddings? No. First Amendment protection. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm not seeing.
That's a priest, but
If your religion doesn't recognize.
see, I was talking about the case with the baker. They forced not to well, allegedly it's not a real case actually. It's actually not real. I mean, it's kind of made up the way that it turned out. But Supreme Court vote, ruled on the defendant. I mean, the so-called Baker wasn't forced to make to service the gay couple. Yeah, so it was kind of a fake case in a way. I mean, the way it turned out. I mean, more of a hypothetical kind of. I mean,
like gay marriage or whatever. Like, okay,
like,
die. But also, marriage is a legal construct that is officiated by the state. He's talking about government officials not needing to do marriage license. Then maybe you shouldn't have been a government employee, you stupid fat bitch.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about.
Does the government employee have to do things for the government and not acting as some kind of self-designated clergyman? Him fucking ghoul.
Using the government's power to do it. That is what I reject. And so call that what you want. It's not the vocabulary.
Oh, does someone have to do your job?
That matters. It's the concept. I am against that. And you may disagree with me on that, but at least we can smoke out where our likely disagreement is rather than worrying about the verbiage.
Yeah, that's different. That's different though. Like a civil servant. This is kind of different. They have to do it. I don't think that this is a different case. This is like a necessity. If the government's doing it, he's in the government. And against the religious belief. But he's in the government, so it's a necessity. So he has to perform. He has to serve the couple. The gay couple or whatever. That's different. I think that's a different case. This is a necessity. He can't just. Another case, the priest. I think he's wrong. Yeah, they are forced to do it. So he has to serve them. So he said they shouldn't. So he's saying that they shouldn't. No, he's wrong. You shouldn't be forced to do that. That's crazy. That's a necessity. It's a private company. It's different. I mean, it's a private company. In the private sector, it's different. They can't force them. But this is like a government. And the Supreme Court said that in the private sector, that case, the couple, the LG couple, LGP, or the LG couple. They say the alphabet couple. No offense. But yeah, they ruled on that. Even that they couldn't do that. They're not allowed to they can't force them to serve them. But definitely they could. This is different, like civil servant. This is like a necessity. They have to serve them. So he's wrong. And that's it, folks. 1 against 4. 1 against 3. Vaush. TYT. And Vivek. This is a bad. It's like a blind. It's not a good interview. This is a bad interview altogether. Like I said in my other video, when he did the Trump derangement syndrome video, that's bad. This is bad. He don't push back at all. That's why his audience were complaining about. There's no pushback, except for when he did the Trump. When he talked about Trump, totally pushed back. Didn't allow him to speak. Just do whatever. I mean, they talk over him. Oh, we're gonna do this. Oh, you mean this and this? Or what about this and that? He's trying to answer the question. But he didn't want to answer it, so maybe that's why. You can understand that. But this did no pushback at all. Just allow him to speak. I mean, there was some pushback with his secularism. But he's a candidate. He's supposed to be a Democratic candidate. And those guys are opponent. The person in the other party is his opponent. So why doesn't he push back? I mean, I guess he's a host, I guess. Not a host, he's a interviewer. So maybe he can't. So that'll be like stepping over the line. But folks, that's it for this. What do you think of this, folks? Any comments or maybe no? Maybe I shouldn't. Anyways, the Vaush did better than I thought. So I shout out to. I'd give him credit, I guess. Oh, he's a bad guy, but hey, I'm out. This is it, folks. I'm out.